The first time I experienced somebody who made their ordinary job extraordinary, I was in my first real job. I was working for a small liberal arts university, declining enrollments, increasing operating costs, small budgets. Sound familiar? And I had the most intimidating boss. She stood about 5 foot tall, and she was scarier than Edna Mode from The Incredibles. When she walked, I always imagined a snapping sound. She had a reputation for having an attitude and impossibly high standards. She smoked like a chimney. And in fact, she broke all university rules by smoking at her desk, and when somebody would walk by, she would put the cigarette inside the desk, and it looked like her desk was on fire. But I loved her. Later, not at first. My responsibilities were pretty clear. The first responsibility I had was to recruit university students. And I was to go to travel throughout the Maritimes and beyond to talk to people about university, not just our university, but the possibility of going to any university. The first week out on the road, Evelyn came with me. And the first night, we were all the same age. Let's just say I was glad social media wasn't around back then. We used to all socialize together. That first night, I was going to socialize for the first time with this great group of 23-year-olds. I had 2 degrees, I thought I was really smart, and I had a big ego. Evelyn had other plans for me. I was to go back to my room and I was to write my presentation over and over and over again until I got it perfect. And all I could think of was, who does she think I am? I had won debating tournaments in high school. I had gone through model parliament. I was trained as a teacher. I didn't need to practice. But I did it. I went back and I wrote my speech time and time again. And you know what? She presented it the next day. My second part of my job was to act as the point person for high school students and guidance counselors throughout the Maritimes and beyond, and to correspond with international students. I actually hated that part of my job. I quickly wrote letters, I sent them off, and I did it as fast as possible. Evelyn checked every single letter. All I could think of was, what a control freak. Third part of my responsibility was to work in the office as part of an administration team. I would put all my filing on the secretary's desk, and she wouldn't file a thing. I couldn't believe her. She wouldn't even listen to what I was saying. When I told her to file, she wouldn't file. So I began to ignore her, and she lovingly began to call me pond scum. That was an endearing term. But I didn't care. I was in my first job. I had a really cool little black Jeep. I was able to travel myself, and I was really able to have a lot of freedom. I had friends, I had money for the first time in my life, and I was living the good life. Then, a freight train hit me. I had my first performance review at my 6-month mark. And it went something like this. Number 1, Tanya's a mediocre presenter. She's unprepared, she loses herself and her ideas, and she isn't able to adequately describe the student experience at the university. If she is to continue in her employment with us, she will have to improve her speaking capability. Second point, Tanya does not write to the level of a university administrator. She rushes her letters, she does not proofread, and she has a limited vocabulary. Third point, Tanya is not a team player. We all have a responsibility to file, to ensure the office is operating in a consistent manner, and to make sure that we as a team achieve an end result. I was shocked and I was angry. And it took me a while to really understand that that day Evelyn gave me a gift. And here's why. Lots of people have ordinary jobs. In fact, movie star roles and astronaut jobs, they're rare. So in order for us to feel passion and purpose in our job, what we need to do is we need to take our ordinary jobs, and in those ordinary jobs, we need to find the extraordinary. And that's what Evelyn did. She lived on passion and on purpose every single day. And she could have just left me to my own devices and allowed me to fail throughout my career, but she didn't. She had a plan. And the plans went something like this. Number one, she coached me after every single presentation for the next 3 months and gave me feedback and made me practice and practice and practice again. And I knew that I had her one day. She didn't give a lot of praise. When she had quietly slipped into a classroom that I was presenting in, and I didn't even see her come in. And as I was walking out, she said nothing, but she had this huge grin on her face. So I knew I had improved. Secondly, she redlined every single piece of my writing for months. I still carry a red pen in my purse to edit my own work. But Evelyn cared enough to sit with me and make sure that my writing capability was to a degree that I would be successful in my career, long term. And thirdly, she allowed me to focus on being a team player. Because for her, it wasn't a job, it was an extraordinary responsibility that we were given. We were given the extraordinary responsibility to enable a student experience, to allow people to see the possibility when before they didn't see possibilities in higher education. She allowed me to think about teamwork and what it was like to live and work on mission. That year, we actually calculated how many hours of overtime we worked, and we figured we made $1.97 for every hour we worked that year. But we did it as a team, and we did it because we were focused on results. Evelyn was committed to the liberal arts education. She believed that we were responsible to ensure people had their potential fulfilled and that we were enablers to that. She made her ordinary job extraordinary every day. And that snapping sound I heard, that was actually what drive sounds like. And that attitude, that's about living on mission. And those impossibly high standards, that was about making sure every single student that we came in contact had an ability to believe in their future. She could have left me alone, but instead she made me think about personal excellence and potential and the ability to make a difference. The very last year I worked for that university, I was going back from Halifax into a rural area in Nova Scotia. And part of our job was to have a job fair where we would give out brochures. I was tired, it was the very last week. We had been recruiting for 4 months straight, and I just wanted to get home. But because I had focused on excellence and personal mission, I did what I did every day, which was to make sure that people could see the possibility in their own lives. This big, tall guy looming over me, firm kid, brought all of his friends over to my booth and then took all my materials. And I thought, oh man, here we go. All right, they joked about a liberal arts degree. They joked about going to university. They made jabbing gestures, and then they left my booth. And then the next part of our job was to go and give a presentation in a classroom. He was in the front row. And all I could think of was what a waste of time for him. But I started my presentation. I talked about the possibility that university brought for you. I talked about how you could think about living your life in a different way. And then it happened. I watched it in his eyes. He leaned in. And for the first time ever, that kid thought about his life in a different way. He thought about the possibility of doing something different, of maybe leaving the province. It didn't happen every day, but it happened. Evelyn made my ordinary job extraordinary. On my last day working at that university, I was packing up, getting ready to go, and Evelyn didn't leave her office all day. She was in there continuing to admit students because she had a belief that people needed to know about the possibility as soon as possible. I finally opened her door to say goodbye, and she was leaning up against our shared wall with her eyes closed. And I said, I'm ready to go. And she turned around, and all she said was, I'll miss you. That was it. Not a lot of words, but if she was going to miss me, I knew that I had made a difference. So what I am challenging you with is make your ordinary jobs extraordinary. Elevate your jobs. Focus on personal excellence, on developing others, on drive. When people hear you coming, let them imagine that snapping. Make sure that whatever you take, whatever ordinary job you take, you make extraordinary. And most importantly, help others do the same. Thank you.